Natalia is one of BLS Russian tutors who moved to Russia last year to live there for 6 months. Today I'd like to find out more about her experience of living abroad. Natalia.
Здравствуйте, Kinga.
Thank you for being my guest today. What triggered your decision to move to Russia? Did you choose the exact location yourself?
Well, originally it was my husband's idea. It was their opportunity to potentially develop his business, and I was really eager to grab that idea because for me it meant a lot from the cultural point of view, that I could show my family, my husband and my children, what Russia is about. So kind of the decision was mutual. And as for the location had to please the whole family, so we chose the south of Russia in Sochi, with the sea and the mountains, so we could, the children and me, we could enjoy the sea, and my husband could enjoy the skiing in the mountains.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. You lived in England for many years. Was it easy to make the decision to move to Russia? What were the key benefits?
It was easy for me to make the decision. From the practical point of view, probably it wasn't that easy when we started, actually, packing up and preparing all the documentation. But I had that idea for years in my head, and my children hit the age when they were ready to explore more, to see the new culture. It's not quite new for them because they're grown up in a bilingual family, but I really wanted them to see Russia and the way Russian life works at this age, because they were ready to absorb a lot of new information. And so yeah, I can say it was easy, and all the difficulties, they just came along as we left England, as we started driving. So one of them was we packed too much stuff in the car, and after the first 10 miles my husband said, "Ooh, I don't think we can make it to Russia because the car is it's wobbling too much." So I was thinking, have I got any friends around Bristol I can drop some stuff off and go further?
So did you go by car?
We went by car. We drove. Yes, we drove to Russia. We drove. We drove to Belarus first. Yeah. It took us around 3 days.
Wow!
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
So we packed everything, and
we packed everything. We packed the dog. We packed all the ski gear, all our duvets and pillows and everything, and and drove. And the first night we stayed in Germany, and the second night we stayed in Poland, and on the third night we already arrived to my parents in Belarus. Stayed there for a few days, celebrated the New Year, and after a week or so we sort of drove all the way to South Russia.
Wow, that's so amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was quite an adventure. 6 days. 6 days it took us. And talking to people who moved to Siberia, to Sochi, apparently it wasn't as bad, because for them, it's just people we made friends with, for them it took 10 days to drive from the Russian city, Barnaul, to Sochi, 10 days. So England is actually closer than some of the Russian places.
Wow, that's extraordinary. Wow.
Wow. It's quite an adventure.
So how did you organize moving out?
Just answered that.
Yes. So, and do you have any practical advice for other people or families facing a similar adventure?
Well, I don't know if there are any people as crazy as me, but personally for us, organization was quite easy because all the paperwork we needed, I could do in Russian, and I could ring the Russian schools or the Russian embassy. Though in the embassy they speak English, of course. But for people who don't speak Russian, there are lots of agencies in London if you need to organize visa and visa support letter, who would do everything for you for not that much charge. So you will have to travel to London to do your fingerprints and bring your passport, obviously. And once you've paid, in 5 days' time, you just receive your passport with the visa. And on the arrival to Russia, also you need to register at the address you leave, and sometimes it could be a little bit, painful because if you arrive in the, for example, tourist season time, lots of registration offices are really busy. So, for example, like I can imagine now in Russia, during the football events, maybe they have organized an easier system of registering, but I remember last year with my husband it was a little bit tricky, so we had to queue in the morning for many hours to register him at the address. Yeah, so this is important to know. Yeah.
Did you or your family members experience any cultural shock? What surprised you or them most?
Of course, all three of them experienced a massive shock. My husband said, they don't sell cheddar cheese. How can Russia survive without cheddar cheese? That was his main concern. But no, just joking. I think because our family is half English, half Russian, lots of things my children and my husband already used to. Well, the first factor is like Russian people are very emotional, very articulative, and and they always say what they think, and I don't think it's very easy from the English cultural point of view to accept that. But yes, children, as for the school, children, first of all, they liked the idea that the Russian school finishes earlier than English school, so usually by 12:30, 1 o'clock in the afternoon they were free, and they were texting all their friends in England. It's like, oh, you have to stay in school till 3:15 and we're already home. But then they realized that coming home they had 3 or 4 hours of homework to do, which they don't do in England. So I think at the end it's probably balances it out, the amount of time that you're spending studying. And there's lots of things, even like looking for the apartment, for example. I haven't booked an apartment before we arrived. I booked a guest house for the first 5 days, and I thought 5 days would be enough for us to find the flat, because there are lots of, you can pay to the agency some extra money and they will provide accommodation for you. But I thought, because I'm a native Russian, I could do it all by myself. But there were lots of tricks as I learned going along. Lots of agencies, but you have to find a trustworthy place, and as it is a tourist place, there are lots of accommodation available, especially when we went in winter time. For example, if you want to stay by the sea, which is in Adelaide, it's 45 minutes away from the mountains, the sea resort is empty, so there is lots of accommodation at that time of the year. But if you go to the mountains, the accommodation is going to be more expensive because people skiing. And if you arrive there in the summer, it's vice versa. The mountain hotels are becoming slightly cheaper, but the beach hotels are more expensive, and the same with flats and houses. So yeah, we rented an apartment not far from Abkhazia, which is like, it's considered to be a cul-de-sac of Russia. So that was the end of Russia where we managed to find an apartment. For us, it wasn't very easy to find the apartment. I mean, we found it within 5 days, but lots of flat owners were concerned about the registration. So because to register at the address to live for, I don't know, more than a month or so, you need to have a local registration, and the flat owner has to come with you to the police office to register, and not everyone wants to do it, sitting in queues and things like that. And so that's why, you know, it wasn't easy for us to do it, but we did it at the end, so it was fine. Yeah.
That's good. Very good. Could you tell me a bit more about your daily life in Russia? Was it very different from your life here in England?
Yes and no. It was very different to begin with, because we had lots of things to sort out, as I just mentioned, finding the flat and then finding the school for children. In Russia, to go to school, you need to have a full medical observation by the doctor, and you have to have a piece of paper. You are healthy to attend school. And yeah, that took us about a week to do all the tests and, you know, to go through all the doctors. And once the flat was found, the school was found, the life has become a little bit easier, and I started looking for a job for myself. Found a job in language center, teaching English as a second language. So I think after the first sort of month, my life started sort of being similar to like English life here. Yeah. As my son said, he thinks, like, analyzing his trip to Russia, now he thinks life in Russia is more spontaneous, and he said when we live in England it's always very calm and very structured. It's like, and in Russia you never know what's going to happen. It's like, what do you mean? It's like, well, it was so much fun, he said. You know, you sit in the evening in the apartment, and then the electricity goes down, and then we go to the restaurant for dinner, and it's like, we never do that in England. So
Yes.
yeah, so this is from the kids' point of view.
So it was actually a slightly bit better.
Yeah.
How beneficial was it for your children, language-wise and culture-wise? Did they go to Russian schools there?
Yes, I think it was hugely beneficial. I think it's just widened their outlook on the whole world. I really like the fact that now, coming back from English school, almost every day they compare. It's like, oh, in Russian school we did that, and in English school we did this. And I think it's important for them to think how, you know, the system works in different countries. And lots of things they probably didn't really like to begin with, but now, you know, after the whole year it's been a year now, they understand why things were done that way. And the first month, from the language point of view, yes, it was very difficult, because the language they use at home with me, Russian language, it's very, we can't say primitive, it's very basic. And when they started doing subjects like history, geography, literature in Russian, it's, you know, it's a completely different level. So I felt like I started school myself, because I had to do all the homework with them for the first, you know, couple of months. And I'm glad though there's a year and a half age difference with them, they were put in the same class, and they were put in year 5 by Russian system. And the teacher said it would be sort of more beneficial for them, because year 5 in Russian is the kind of revising all the revision of the primary school curriculum. So all the 4 years they've done before, they revise in year 5, and from year 6 the big school starts. So it was very useful for them to have that here. And but yeah, I think my son, I think, enjoyed the school more than my daughter, but because he's an extrovert, he likes new places, he likes meeting people. My daughter, she's quieter, and, you know, she's a bit of an introvert, she's an artist, so I think she feels more comfortable in English school. Yeah.
Was it difficult to come back? Were you tempted to stay longer in Russia?
It was difficult to come back. The main difficulty, well, not the main difficulty, but one of the difficulties was when I started packing the car to go back, because I was so enthusiastic last year about going to Russia, and this like idea was just made me feel buzzing. I don't know how the day after Christmas, I've packed in one day the whole car. But when I started to pack to go back, it took me a week, and I didn't know how I did, because there wasn't as much enthusiasm then when I was leaving. So that was difficult to pack. But from the sort of the psychological point of view, it was, I was looking forward to see England as well, because you know, lots of friends are here, you know, lots of people I've missed. But it was sad in a way, because you know, you leave sort of a part of yourself there. You spend more than 6 months there, and you you started organizing your own life. So, but I think, like, just looking back, it was a fantastic experience for the whole family. The only regret I had is that we went only for 6 months, not for the whole year. I think going for the whole academic year for children, it would have been easier to sort of accustom to the school system and everything. So if they started from September till May, but you know, from January till May was, you know, good enough as well.
Fantastic. Many thanks for being my guest today, Natalia. I hope our audience will find our interview inspirational. Спасибо.
Пожалуйста, всегда пожалуйста.